The new intro song.
I love listening to this when I'm actually driving down my short drive.
Yeah.
I could give a shit about the pumpkin, Slint, or Wilco. Learn how to make a pizza, you fucking jack-offs.
Okay.
Don't like the dish.
Yeah. Get that over a little bit, or just try to keep in line with it.
Like that?
Yes.
That sounds way better.
Perfect.
Yes.
This is Wrench Life, and Blaise is here,
I'm here.
and that's the normal intro. But I'm gonna skip through it because who cares? I put my phone on silent. All right, this is Wrench Life. I don't even know what episode it would be at this point because whatever, 23, 24, 21.
No, it's gonna be really fast, so it's probably 24.
Yeah, like Jeff Gordon.
Hell yeah,
So
brother.
Blaise is back, at least for the time being.
I am.
So that's pretty exciting. And that's about all. It's just exciting because Despair December.
December despair.
Yeah, whatever. December, yeah. So today we're going to do, I'm just going to recap Meatober because this is the first Wrench Life since Meatober ended. I actually did one, recorded it, and then just never edited it and just was like, yeah, fuck it, I'll redo it with Blaise.
Sick.
Then we'll recap No Rest November, which ended yesterday. Then I'm going to kind of just, from there, what are we going to do?
Well, we can recap No Like November too.
Yeah, then we're going to talk about where Blaise has been, what Blaise has been up to. And then we'll see if Blaise has a moment for us. I'm sure he does. And then I'll do another book excerpt. Last time I did the same book excerpt, but I wasn't particularly happy with how I did it. So, yeah, and then we'll end. So,
Great.
we'll see how that goes. So,
Tell me about Meatober. I mean, I know all about it, but the fans, they need
Yeah.
to hear all about it.
so we're actually up to 7 listeners now.
Whoa.
Yeah, there's a guy at the skate park who was like, he's like, I'm the 7th one. He literally said that,
I think
which
you
is
told me
pretty
that.
awesome.
Yeah. I think Mike Olin actually listens. He was talking about listening to the podcast.
Who's that? The bike guy?
Yeah, he owns the Subaru
Volkswagen,
shop.
the Subaru, whatever, same
Yeah,
thing.
same thing.
Yeah, so we talked a lot about Meatober, so I don't really talk too much more about it. So I just wanted to touch about the feeling of being off meat, the good, the bad. The good is, its sugar tastes pretty good.
Sure does.
What I have, I ate a blondie, you know, like a cookie brownie or whatever.
Yeah.
And I was just like,
Those are my favorite.
I was like, oh my god. Like, the Pims were all making fun of me. They're like, are you okay? And I'm like, just let me enjoy this. Holy crap. It was intense. It was amazing. Definitely had a little bit of a sugar buzz going. I guess that would be the good. The bad that would come along with that is, you know, it's more up and down. The meat diet was so level.
Yeah.
Now it's like, I mean, I'm not napping, although I did take a nap once. But it's definitely not as stable. My exercise, I'm fine out the gate like I used to be. Didn't have that kind of slow in the beginning thing on the keto diet. So I guess that's good.
Well, I
Maybe.
mean, having that baseline of one thing, you're probably able to like really diagnose or dissect what each thing you're eating does.
Yeah, a little bit. I don't know. I started vegetables. Very, very few vegetables. I've just mostly been eating nuts. Really the only difference. Not too many refined carbs. Every time I did have a bunch of refined carbs, like I ate a whole pizza, man, I fucking paid for it. Oh, man, I was gargling, grumbling, rumbling, like 2 poops the next morning. Like, ugh. It seems like the wheat products just make me fart a whole lot.
Yeah, I mean that's in line with how I feel, and all I eat is bullshit carbs. Not all I eat, but I eat it more than I should.
I'm not feeling like the typical bloat feeling aside from the few times I ate the whole pizza. I did that more than once, if you're paying attention. But I don't know. It's so hard to not eat that food because it tastes so good and it feels so good. It just doesn't feel as good later. And I've definitely been struggling with the sugar cravings. It's like it's almost like being possessed. Like it's almost like I can't even make it's like I'm like grabbing like the peanut butter, like Nature Valley nut butter, peanut butter thing at the skate park. I just like can't. I'm like all of a sudden I'm like, wait, how's this in my hand and open?
Yeah, I almost.
And then I
did
ate
that
4 of them.
at the skate park with the like Airheads.
They had the bright colors and everything.
Yeah,
It looks so
oh.
good.
Gay bacon strips. Great.
I've been mostly pretty good on my diet. Definitely more meat centric, more carnivore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've been putting Brussels sprouts on my breakfast. It's pretty interesting though. Like all day long when I burp, I could taste the Brussels sprout, and it definitely tastes way more pungent than they used to be. Like I recently had some more. Like last night, I made this like I was like butternut squash and yam and carrot thing, and so a bunch of fiber there. The fiber seems to have a big effect on the overall pooping aspect. It's like all month on the meat diet, like it was almost like I could kind of poop whenever I wanted to. Like I could, don't have to.
Yeah.
It was never like I need to. It was just kind of like whatever. And then the first time I broke that diet, the next day I was like, oh my God, I gotta go. and it was kind of like panicky, and that's how poops always felt in the past. And then for a month or like after the adjustment week, for a couple weeks, they were not like that. And then it made the normal way that everyone goes about bowel movements feel like this doesn't feel normal. Like I shouldn't be panicking. Like it shouldn't like be like, oh man, like, so that's interesting. I'm going to try to be better in December. Yeah. So, I mean, that's what last thing I noted here, current, and then going forward. Yeah. I'm going to try to stay meat centric.
It seems to be working.
Yeah. The beer's been the hard one. I was only going to drink on the weekends, and then that turned out to be every day.
Well, I was trying to think of something clever.
And that's a lot of carbs.
Yeah.
A lot of calories. So, I don't know. I'm really going to try to combine everything I've done into December and kind of make a nice trichotomy out of it, where I'm going to limit the drinking, stay carnivore-ish, and continue some of the No Rest November stuff, which segues perfectly into the next section. Just finished No Rest November, and there's a whole lot of running, all of it outside.
Game? What's a game?
Why would you run outside when there's treadmills?
That's so dumb. But yeah, No Rest November
Spin class.
for Zoom and not Zoom, Zwift and Peloton.
Yeah.
It's whack. Part of the thing in No Rest November is forcing yourself to go outside.
Yeah. Which wasn't as hard.
Yeah, it was
this
so
year.
mild this
Yeah.
year. Last year was so cold. But that was, yeah, I didn't get too cheeky this year and switch in a bunch of 10Ks and push it here and there. I really stuck strictly to just a 5K a day. My paces were decent. My slow runs are about, 9:30 to 10:30, depending on how, whatever. My fast runs were more around the 8-minute mark and 9-ish if they were on trail. Probably did half trail, half pavement. This probably wasn't half and half. It was probably more pavement than trail. Just the trail runs were more memorable because they're fun.
Yeah. It's a lot more fun looking at trees than your block.
Yes. And compared to last year, the muscle recovery was fine. I mean, I was absolutely fine. I was not even sore. Last year, my quads and my calves were like, they felt like they were one giant bruise. They were so sore. And I don't know if it was the soreness or the temperature, but there's times I'd pull into Seneca Park. I'd sit there in my car for like 15, 20 minutes like, fuck, dude, like, it's like sitting there for 20 minutes to run for half an hour.
Yeah.
And then after you get a mile in, you're like, oh.
Yeah. Not
Okay.
so bad.
But this year I was just fine. My muscles feel good.
Do you think that was due to the meat diet? Or
I think it was from the disc
conditioning?
golf.
Oh, really? Oh, you did tell me
Well,
that.
last year, I ran my first 5K ever, I think, in September. And then I ran a 10K once in October. Probably ran 3 times in October. And then in November, I just went from not running to, let's just do this every fucking day and do a 10K a week and a half marathon.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. But yeah, I played 270 rounds of disc golf this year.
Yeah.
And I played a bunch of running rounds, and I generally keep the pace up. So I was always a bike guy. Like, I spent no time on my feet. It's just pedaling. So I've had a lot of miles. I mean, every round of golf is going to be between 2 and 4 miles. So that's 500 miles on my feet.
Yeah.
So that definitely conditioned me. I can imagine that like having so much protein would have my muscles in pretty good shape. I don't know, honestly, in that department. But it was good. I mean, I feel great. Aside from, like, I had this weird muscle in the back of my knee that I like gets pissed off every once in a while from random shit. I'm not even sure if it's muscle or not, to be honest, but it's something that kind of happens a day or so and then it's fine. So that happened once or twice. I got the old BMX knee, so that would happen, on trail runs going downhill. You could kind of like, you could feel like, it doesn't hurt, but you feel the pressure's like,
you're like, this is fine for now.
It's the kind of thing that most people say my knee hurts, but for like a BMX person, you're like, oh, there's a little bit of a twinge in there.
Yeah.
Like, it's a little pissed
Stuff
off.
that people would go to the hospital for. That we're like, yeah, it was kind of annoying.
Yeah. And then, a couple times the knee was a little bit rough. And then I had this pain in my shin. I guess turns out it's a shin splint. I never knew that.
Yeah, people, all these pussies have names for stuff that we just think, that's annoying.
Yeah, I just think it's like this muscle in my... I remember, like, it's on the outside of my shin, upper part, and I would always, like, take this leg over and use, like, the knob of my ankle and, like, kick the crap out of the side of my shin all the time when it would bother me. But, like, it always come and go here and there. I never even, like, thought about it enough to find any sort of causal relationship between what was aggravating it. And then over the last couple of runs, it got to the point where I had to walk on one run a little bit, and so I Googled it. I'm like, oh, that's a shin splint, huh? Okay. I guess it's relatively mild because people say it's pretty painful. I don't know.
I think I've had them, like, from standing, like, in restaurants or even at the skate park before we got, like, a mat or something. It's amazing how much just a little mat can affect your...
Yeah, I was reading everything with, like, foot, knee, and ankle. They're like, oh, it could be your shoes. It could be the way your foot hits the ground. It's like, oh, thanks.
Yeah, literally any factor of how you interact with the world.
And a lot of people on the running aspect, they talk about, like, your foot gait, you can't, no heel strikes, you got to do this. Like, my brother's always saying how when he was running, he was, like, adjusting how his foot was landing so much and how he would feel different things in different places. Like, I honestly don't know. Maybe I'm just, like, a dumb animal. And I'm just like...
Point me in a direction and just start going.
I like the trail runs 'cause I think it forces you to, like, pick your foot placement, and I don't think you have to really think about how your foot lands, because I mean you don't think particularly stride by stride because you're navigating roots and rocks and leaves, and like you have to think about it. Yeah, I've done runs where I didn't let my heels touch at all, and that was like, I mean, my shins felt absolutely fucking hammered the next day, but I didn't notice any difference in like foot or ankle pain. So I don't really know. I'd say maybe I don't run enough for any of those problems to manifest. But, it's like, 5K a day. It's like, that's a lot, I guess.
Run enough.
But then there's other people that, like, I follow on Strava that run, like, not as often, but every run they do is, like, 6-8 miles. It's like, okay, so who knows? Whatever, but I felt great muscle-wise. Very, very happy with my muscle recovery. Very happy with the performance. I wanted to end stronger. Like, I wanted to go out and, like, PR my 5K.
Or run a half marathon.
And run a half marathon.
It's smart to not do that if you're not feeling well.
Yeah, I guess.
Because
I was going to get up this morning at 7 and run a 10K. And I was like, yeah, maybe I'll just run a 5K. And then I got up at 8:15, and I was like, yeah, well, don't have time now. I thought I slept like shit last night, and then my Garmin said I slept for like 8 hours, 15 minutes, which is pretty on the longer end for me. So I don't know. But, yeah, that's it. Let's see. Aches, pains, overall versus last year, yep. And lastly, they're going forward. Yeah, I'm going to try to keep running throughout the winter. But I'm at 2,700 and something miles biked. And I'd like to get to 3,000. So that means I'd have to bike 250 miles this month, which would be pretty hard for December. So I don't know how much running I could sustain while doing that much biking, time-wise, because my schedule's super busy now. But I don't know. I'm probably just going to try to keep my Strava streak alive, because last year I did 111 days of consecutive activities logged. And this year I definitely have beat that. So I'm probably going to try to make sure I do something all the way through to the end of the year. The hardest for those are Saturdays, though, because it's like a 12-hour day, and the girlfriend stays over, and Sunday's a long day, and then Wednesdays I open up early, so that's not so bad. But on Tuesdays, they're here to set up for school by 8:45, so if I can't get out by like 7:30, I can't get much of an activity in. But whatever. I just gotta make sure I keep doing something so I can keep telling everyone else they're pussies.
Yeah. I mean, definitely.
You don't know me, son.
You don't know me.
And that basically concludes the wrap-up of No Rest November and Meatober. So that's cool, I guess. Now we're going to segue into a little recap of where Blaise has been, because you've been gone for how long?
Like a year.
A year. It's crazy how long and short a year can be.
Yeah.
It's almost like it's 365 days.
Yeah. It's almost like that.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I worked at Alinea for a year, so it's like been more than a year that I've been officially gone or moved. So, I think I left in the summer of last year, and then it's all been kind of a blur.
And was this a dream job you left for, or?
Yeah, it was a pretty big deal. I mean, it's like it was one of the best it was the best restaurant in the country when it opened.
If 1 is dream and 10 is nightmare, where did you perceive it in the beginning as what it was going to be, and then where was it at the end? 1 is dream, 10 is nightmare.
I thought of it as like a 5 because I was when I staged, I hated it. I thought it was pretty awful.
That's
and
awesome.
Then I just kind of convinced myself I was being a bitch, and I wanted to go and work as hard as I could for as long as I could. And I kind of set the time frame for myself, like, well, if I move there and I work there for a few months and I hate it, that's not so bad. And I tried it, and then like, okay, well, if 6 months works, then there's really no sense in giving up after 6 months. On your resume, you should always do like a year.
Yeah, definitely a year looks good.
So I was like, well, if that works, then I'll do my year, and then so 6 or so months in is when the Rona hit, and then we all got furloughed. So the first 6 months were great. I progressed a lot. I worked as hard as I possibly could, and I think I did pretty well, and I moved up the ranks pretty fast and kind of established myself. And then when the Rona hit and we all everything shut down, a few weeks, maybe even a week or two into that, after the whole restaurant group got furloughed, we wanted to try out a to-go thing, and trying out to-go ended up being the first day like 200 meals. And then
So were you doing like their crazy style to go stuff, or was it like just more like
originally
we're just trying to get meals?
Originally it was home style Alinea food to go, and it turns out if you say that we're selling anything, people are going to buy it. So
Yeah.
Our reservations sold out in like an hour for a couple hundred meals.
Wow.
And once we built the base of that and kind of figured out what we were getting ourselves into, we slowly brought people back and just took that model and expanded it until it got out of hand.
I remember you sending me the picture of this like 1 billion chicken breasts or whatever they were. It was
Yeah,
it must have been like 1,000 or something. It was crazy.
Yeah, there was a few. For one of the menus, we did chicken thighs, and there was mornings where I signed invoices for orders of literally 1,000 pounds of chicken thighs.
Wow.
And then cooked them all morning. I would go to the one of the other restaurants we had which is by my apartment, so up the street from Alinea itself, and I would go there at 5 a.m. Before anybody else was there.
Too early.
And it would just be me in the basement it was like a really nice kitchen, but and I don't know, 10 different pots full of ripping hot oil and chicken thighs, and I would just flip chicken for a few hours. And then load my car up with it and drive it up the street. So
how many chicken thighs can you fit in your Subaru? And how good did it smell?
Pretty good. And a few 100 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah, so we had these big, I'm sure I sent you pictures of them, of these big plastic containers called Lexans. They're like this big, and
made of Lexan.
Yeah. And we put pretty much everything in those because they're like a big standard box that stack marginally well until they fall over. And so I would, there was a lot of weird lifting going on there.
Yeah.
And I stayed in pretty good shape just doing that.
Yeah.
Which was, moving these big, like just basically deadlifting, squatting, and like overhead pressing these big stupid boxes around the kitchen.
How wide are they?
I think they're about this big. So like the table, they're basically like the table if it was a little thinner.
I'm sure it was loaded with chicken. It probably isn't that light, and without that wide a lever, it'd probably be pretty difficult.
So you're grabbing it like this from the floor, and it's
Nice.
you can put a couple 100 pounds in there. Pretty gnarly. So yeah, we did the to-go thing. That got it was fun for a while. I think it was an interesting shift in the culture there. Whereas I think I had mentioned before that, like I said, it was a nightmare because it was a very intense. When you work at that high level, there's a certain level of expectations and attention to detail and a weird level of hazing. Like, if you ever watch Hell's Kitchen, it really is like that. Like
I never watched it.
Some dude with a British accent's yelling in your face, telling you you're stupid. But sometimes that's warranted. And then when we started doing this to-go thing, it was a little more relaxed. We were doing a pretty immense amount of work, but we did it happier.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty cool. And then we did a pop-up, which was just kind of a loophole to do our normal food again. So it was on the roof, so it was technically outdoor dining. So it was a loophole that we could serve 100 people a 25-course meal every night. Wow. That we did alongside the to-go stuff, which we had pulled back a little bit, but it was still a pretty wild amount of work.
So they were doubling you up.
Yeah, so there was a 2-week period where I worked 180 hours.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and it was straight up 110 hours one week, and it was it's a lot. It's a lot
I know.
of hours.
You don't have time to even like decompress, really.
No, I would literally it would get done at 1 or 2 in the morning. I'd go home and take a nap, and my girlfriend at the time and I who worked with me, we would wake up in the morning and look at each other and just cry. Like, why are we doing this? Like, this is awful. Like, we just went to bed.
Taking a break from crying in the mirror, just crying, looking into someone else's face.
Yeah, there's just one morning I'm never going to forget where we, 4-hour nap right back to work, and we're just like, what are we doing? And we I don't think we even had the radio on or the music on in the car. We just drove in silence to work. Like, just, this is awful. And the best part about the drive is we got to a stop sign, and this dude was walking his dog, and the dog just kind of gave up halfway through the street and just laid down, and the dude just dragged him, and we're both like, yeah, me too, buddy. Me too.
Oh, God.
So, yeah, once it got, like, I can work really hard, but it got to the point where it was that plus an unwarranted amount of hazing that was weird.
So how'd it come to an end?
Yeah, so I put my notice in, and they promptly fired me the next day. So,
did you have any conversations before they fired, like before that one? Like,
yeah, that was what was
you expressed
interesting.
Concerns?
Yeah, I think a month before, I had expressed my concerns at how they were acting, and I felt a big shift in how they were treating us in a negative way, and I expressed my feelings in a concise and I'm an emotional guy, so it's a little harder for me to like go up and
I feel you.
do that. But I expressed my concerns. I said what I think needed to change and move, and when that didn't happen again, I went a little higher up the chain and said, hey, like, your guys are not doing the right thing, and I'm thinking about leaving. And I thought that would put a little pressure on them to, I
at least consider it.
Yeah, my station partner and myself worked what they kept saying was a very important, challenging station, and supposed to set the example and lead the rest of the crew. And I would think from a management perspective, if your quote unquote best guys come up and say, hey, we're not happy with what's going on, I'm not just saying that because it's hard. I'm saying because it's not right. You would think that would bend some things in the right way. And when that didn't, and push came to shove, and I was like, you know what, I'm done. I'm going to quit. I don't think that everything that I had done up to that point in trying to change the situation was expressed to the chef, because why would you go up to your boss and be like, hey, this guy said we kind of sucked and he's really unhappy and we didn't do anything about it, so he quit, because that makes you look bad.
Yeah, because the person in the middle has to kind of admit they kind of messed up.
Yeah, and no one's going to do that.
I would imagine it's a top-down thing, so I'd imagine if they were strict with you, they'd be strict with him.
So it was,
fear.
yeah, it was a weird ego fest of, kids that were my age that had never been leaders or really done anything else in their lives, and being a sous chef at Alinea is like it's a huge deal and a great accomplishment, but it shouldn't define you and be your only thing. So
you left.
I left.
Then what's the plan?
I was gonna drive around the West Coast and or the Midwest, whatever. Just I converted the Subaru into a little camper setup and built a little bed to sleep in, and I finally set off and made it to the Badlands. And then my first full day in Boulder, I snapped my leg.
Broke your leg.
Yep.
Compound tib fib.
Compound tib fib, pretty much the worst.
Why don't you just tell us exactly what compound tib fib means?
Well, there's two bones in your leg, and I broke them both, and then the bones came out of my leg. Yeah. So I got my first surgery in Boulder that day, where they installed a tibial nail from my knee to my ankle, which involves cutting your knee and literally hammering a rod through your bones to the point where my heel is bruised. I know I've expressed that to you, but it's so ridiculous to me that my heel is bruised from surgery.
How long ago was that?
A month and a week or something like that.
Yeah, I see you're not in crutches now.
Yeah, no, I'm walking already, which is pretty amazing. You would think that I really expected to still be in like a full immobilized cast and everything, but they X-rayed me and said I had some pretty early signs of some early healing, and cleared me for walking as long as it doesn't hurt. As the tibia with the rod in it, since it has the rod, can carry most of your weight, and as it heals, the rod's just going to carry less of your weight.
Tibia is the big one?
The big one, yeah.
Okay.
And then the fibia is a non-weight-bearing bone. It's one of the doctors described it as it just kind of holds muscles. Like it's just something for muscles to attach to. And it only carries about 8% of your body weight. So there's no support in that in my leg. Now it's still broken. But since it's not really a weight-bearing bone, it's cleared for
from a health perspective. What did they tell you about like recovery? Did they like tell you anything about like what you should be doing or not doing, or eating or not eating, or like did they just say like, yeah, no, you're good?
Yeah, no, I had I not been through
Corona.
Yeah. Had I not been through many, many doctors, I don't think I would have gotten the answers, or I wouldn't have gotten the advice that my questions got.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
I've never really had any broken bones, at least that I went to the hospital for. Yeah, I would just, well, we all know that the medical, like, those people are like, they're like, it's like medicine, like mechanics. Like, they just care about the physical, like, it's not, you're saying, like, the bone, the ligament, reattach, good, bye, you know, which is very different than, like, all the biomechanics and the biology of it. And, like, I would imagine, like, I mean, if you just snap two bones, it'd be like, oh, maybe it's a good idea to make sure you're getting a lot of calcium, you know, it's maybe make sure you're getting, you know.
They did say, like, diet wasn't
they're like, don't be vegan.
Yeah, had I been vegan, I would not be walking.
Did you see Joe Rogan shared that article where it's like vegan?
I think I sent it to you.
Did you? I think a couple of people sent it to me. Vegans have a 43% higher chance of bone breaks or something.
Oh, no, you know what? You sent me that one, and then the next day I sent you the other one he posted that was like vegan. Being vegan isn't going to save the planet.
Oh, yeah, it's not.
Yeah. But for sure, I don't particularly eat that much meat.
I'm gonna start calling them Megans because it's all about me.
Yeah, for sure. Bunch of Megans,
Megans.
Yeah, there was a little bit about diet saying that I should maybe up my my protein, obviously, to help with the healing.
Yeah, I'd imagine like you'd want a lot of proteins, a lot of that, like the collagens and all like that, like slow cooked stuff, because you like, I mean, you get a lot of. I'm sure there's lots of damage when that something that catastrophic happens.
I mean, thankfully for what it was, it's if you're gonna break 2 bones and have them come out of your body, pretty good scenario as to where it happened. If it was lower, it would have maybe caused some ankle issues, or higher, it might have messed with my knee.
That ligament and tendon stuff is so much slower recovery, you know?
Than just bone breaking. So, yeah, I mean, like it feels pretty weird. Like, I'm never gonna forget the feeling of I had a little weird flashback of falling last night, and the feeling of when I picked my leg up and my foot didn't come with it.
Oh, that's so freaky, dude.
Yeah. Yeah. It was rough. But we're walking again, driving. I'm at the gym, which has been helping a lot. I think getting back in the gym and getting the blood flow going, and
definitely.
And just, if anything, for my mental health, to just not...
You should have seen Phil going at his lat recovery like a lunatic, dude.
Yeah, you were telling me he's always like, massaging it or icing it.
Insane, man. Like, I've never seen someone go so hard into anything. It's Phil, so...
I mean, that pretty much goes for anything Phil does.
I mean, I don't think there's anything I could do better than Phil. He's crazy. All right. We don't have to go too crazy, because I'd like to later on dive deeper into some of that stuff. I'd really like to talk about that, like what that was mentally like. But I think that can warrant a whole conversation.
Oh, yeah. We could talk a while about
I've had plenty of injuries and stuff, and we could talk all about, like, identifying pains. But, like, that idea of just, like, the structural thing of, like that's a foundational idea in your head. Like, oh, that's your leg. And then when it's not there, it's like, whoa,
yeah,
you know,
it'd be probably good to talk about that even later, because I'm still kind of reframing how I feel about my physicality. It's strange.
Well, I said to you, and it's worth noting here that like PTSD essentially is when something occurs that you didn't think could occur. Like, it's like you like everyone thinks their rationality is like the bedrock of everything, right? Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden something happens that shatters it, and it's something you were 100% certain of. Oh, it's my leg. It's always my leg. I never even thought that my leg could be 2 pieces. And it takes a long time to remap all of that in your brain and like you'll think about it, and it trips like a wire, and all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, my leg. Like, that's what PTSD is. That's what happened with my face. That's what happens with people in war. You know, the problem with like the war stuff is like you can't really like go through that. Like, you can't, like, you broke your leg, you could look down at your leg and be like, hey, it's there now, like it broke, it healed, okay.
Yeah.
Like, eventually you could remap that in your head, you know. Like, I smashed my face in the ground and knocked my teeth out, like just dicking around, just being dumb. And then like the idea of like I was one with my bike, but then this thing happened, this error happened that was so catastrophic. Like, it took me like 3 years to mentally get over it.
Yeah.
It's a panic attacks. Happens in like a war. It's like, what are you going to do? You can't be back in that battlefield. You can't be back in that situation. Like, there's really no way to remap that.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, you can't like relive or go other than your own memory of it, which is obviously skewed. You can't. So.
But anyway, all right, we'll jump back to that. If you're one of the 7 listeners, feel free to let us know which one of those things you'd like to have us elaborate on later.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'll choose. And then we can go here into some mindful moments if you would like. I didn't have time to think about any of these, so I don't think I really have one. We can cue the music here, which sounds lovely. I mean, do you have one? I mean, I'm sure you got plenty.
I'm trying to think of a good one.
I mean, if you don't have one, we don't have to do it. We can go right into the next section.
I've got sad ones. For sure I have some unhappy ones.
Would that be like an anxiety moment, or are we talking like an angry moment? Because I gotta hit the right button on the soundboard.
I know, I'm trying to think. Well, it's... No, it's not. That's not ceremony. I guess it's not anxiety either, though. It's just like I've been dealing with a lot of just straight up sadness. I don't know how to. Yeah, that, but slower.
Can I slow it down? I don't think there's a way to slow it down.
Well, I mean, like I mentioned, I was quit my job but was fired, so that was kind of a betrayal, a weird remapping.
Well, yeah, that's a shot right to you and your status.
Yeah, and then dumb girlfriend stuff, and then
Always.
breaking my leg. It felt like, oh, well, that's like everything that I thought was.
It's kind of funny. It's not funny, but and then you like when Jordan Peterson talks about like dominance hierarchy stuff, and like people have like breakdowns, and he always says these things that almost sound like ridiculous that wouldn't happen, and he's like, what if you lose your job, lose your girlfriend, break your leg, all of a sudden your whole world is destroyed, and it's like that doesn't happen to people. It's like
to Blaise.
Apparently it does. I mean, every realm of your existence is which got blasted. Like you're like. There's a lot to remap mentally.
Yeah.
And physically, for that matter.
Yeah, it's been a lot, and I've just been having.
Sometimes.
Gotta take a little time.
I just for a few weeks when I got home to here, I would just have nights where I'd just cry all night, just uncontrollable sobbing for a few hours.
The good old days.
Yeah, it's real nice, and that had subsided a bit until last night. I just this will segue into, I think the next thing is I went off my meds.
Yeah,
and I think it just all hit me yesterday. I just like didn't go to sleep till like 4
well,
or
I
5
imagine
in the morning.
all of a sudden you're gonna be like flooded with highs and lows of serotonin after not being on that, so that's gonna throw you for a loop.
Yeah,
you're like basically a chick on her period right now.
Yeah, and do you want to segue right into that then, or was that the next thing, or?
I don't know. What was the next thing?
I don't know. You said we were to do the next thing after the moments.
No, we could riff on this for a little bit.
Oh. Yeah, it was the last few days I had like nausea and dizziness, which again, like stuff people would be like, "Oh my God, what's wrong with me?" I'm like, "Man, this is weird. I feel a little strange today. I've been working out, and I thought maybe I hadn't, recovered enough or eaten enough." And then I just Google sertraline withdrawal. I'm like, oh, I'm nauseous and dizzy, and it some of that subsided, and some of the mental stuff has come back up yesterday and today.
I think generally a lot of people catastrophize, which is one of the Freudian defense mechanisms, where it's like, they feel something hurts, and there's like, oh, well, they just jump to the most dramatic thing rather than like having, the rational, or what we're perceiving as rational, or like that, and like I like the idea of anti-fragility, where it's like something's wrong, like, okay, what is this?
Yeah,
doesn't seem that serious. Like to err on the side, of caution. I mean, obviously you need to take it seriously with a lot of stuff, but
that's kind of how I've been taking it with my leg too. It's like they said, as long as it doesn't hurt, you can pretty much go for it. So it's been a weird game of pushing my leg to its limits and being like, I was walking to my car from Wegmans one day, and I was like, I got a pretty sharp pain in my broken ass leg. And I was like, oh, well, there's the limit. I'm not going to freak out and call my doctor, but like it was, okay, that hurt. That was bad. Rather than, oh, it's sore. I have a broken leg. It's not going to feel good.
Yeah, in that same vein of catastrophizing, a lot of people would be like, oh, well, this is just my new leg. Same thing with Phil. Like, he wouldn't settle for a doctor unless the doctor said, we'll get you back to 100. Every other doctor would be like, well, you're kind of old, like 32.
Yeah.
And like, it'll just never be the same, And a lot of people just like something happens in their life and they're like, I guess this is the new normal.
Yeah.
Like COVID world, this is the new normal. It's like, no, I will not accept that.
Yeah. So, that's all I got for that.
Yeah.
So I'm a little afraid today, as I did not sleep.
Yeah. I used to, throwing it way back, do you remember LiveJournal? It was like an early like Tumblr, but pretty much just text. I mean, there was like Blurdy.
Sounds familiar.
Then there was like Zanga. Then there was LiveJournal. There was all like in the MySpace days. They were just like, you just write stuff and people could see what you write. So it was like this whole like social media, like everyone's
Social
watching.
media, pre-social
Oh
media.
my god, I read your LiveJournal post, like or whatever. But my like one of the taglines on mine was a Nirvana lyric that was, "I miss the comfort in being sad." And that was something I always liked the idea of it, but I didn't like really I couldn't like didn't really grasp it till like the last year or so when I'm not sad anymore. And it's like there's this like weird comfort in being sad and depressed where it's like you don't got to worry about like other problems because you're just so consumed by like this existential dread, you know. You're just like, ugh, it's like comforting. It's like I don't got to worry about, I'm not even gonna think about work stress or this stress because I'm just like,
Yeah.
but obviously it's not healthy at all.
Yeah, it's like the opposite. I mean, it's obviously the opposite of doing the correct thing with those feelings. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a time and a place for that. I'm not saying don't feel things, but as opposed to like, oh, let me take this and turn it around. It mellows it out in the other way where it's like, okay, everything sucks, so what can suck more?
I think it's appropriate to soak in it. Like I think you have
sure.
to soak in it, but you have to be critical and analytical of it. You can't just like soak on the sadness or soak in all the defense mechanisms that aren't going to lead you anywhere. Like you have to like think about it and analyze it and break it down, and that means you have to get like knee deep into the swamp and then take a step and you fall up to your neck and you're almost drowning in your own psyche, you know, and then you realize, maybe that was all my fault.
And no one wants to think about that. It can't be my fault, then it would be my fault.
Yes, to Blaise land. I wasn't even setting you up for that. Actually, this will actually segue into a moment for me. I was it's kind of funny. I hope Dara doesn't listen to this. My girlfriend wrote me, so I have a picture in my room, right? And it's like a little montage of me and my friend Lynn. And I kept noticing it was turned around. And I was like, or no, it had fallen over. So I was like, weird, whatever. And then it was turned around and I was like, And then one day it was just like gone and it was like 2 shelves down. And then I was like, just went downstairs and I was like, are you gaslighting me? And she's like, what? I'm like, are you gaslighting me? She's like, what? I just kept staring her down. She's like, oh, the picture. I'm like, yes, the picture. She's like, I'm detail-oriented enough to realize when something in my room moves. And then she wrote me a note. And then the note, I mean, it was this is kind of what we do. Like, she'll write it down so we can kind of, like, get through it easier. And it was like, you know, I don't know why you would have this picture of your ex-girlfriend in your room. You know, it makes you feel like you're not fully committed, like you got one foot in the past, blah, 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 blah. And I was just like, text her, I'm like, it's not my ex-girlfriend. Like, this girl I never dated. She's like, well, I just feel dumb now. And I'm like, it's fine. I'm like, it's better we talked about it. You probably should have brought it up sooner so you didn't stress out about it for God knows how many months, you know?
Yeah.
So that's kind of maybe her moment than mine. But what I'm getting into is I was cleaning my room like the next day and I found like kind of like what I like said to her is like, I'm like, you're right. I shouldn't dwell on the past. And when I was younger, I totally did dwell on the past and I'm pretty much over that. And I want to be like minimalist utilitarian. I want to throw away like everything I own, but it's honestly really, really fucking hard to throw away anything. And I'm like, I have no attachment to my ex-girlfriend anymore. Like, obviously there's really fond memories that'll always be there, but it's not like I'm like envious of her fucking husband or something. It's like, I don't fucking care. My life is fucking sick. And, but then I realized like I do have a lot of stuff in the past I don't really necessarily need. And then I was cleaning my room and I found like, I still have like random notes from my ex-girlfriend. I mean, we just dated in 2004 and by 2013 it was over, you know?
Yeah.
It's like 8 years ago now. 7, 8, whatever. Like I found like I still have notes like in this drawer and that drawer. I'm like, why do I have all these? And then I was like, I should just put them in that box. All the stuff I have hers. I'm like, wait, why do I have the box? Then I'm like, open the box up and I was like gonna like get nostalgic and read it. I'm like, why do I want to read these notes from when I was in high school? And I was like, I should just get rid of this. And I was like, oh man. And I just had this moment. I'm like, should I like it would probably be a nice like just burn the whole box. It would kind of be closure to it. But at the same time, it's like, man, that was like my first love. And it's not like, it's more like a romanticism of the first love, not so much her, because like we were just fucking kids. And like,
Yeah.
I mean, I think basically my relationship was pretty, on my side, pathological. And like the one note I did read was just like, you know, we were kids. I was straight edge because my mom fucking was a drunk and everything. And she was partying and she was trying to explain to me how she just wants to like be a teenager and like party with her friends and have a good time. And I can remember how like mad I was about it and how unrealistic it was and how much I felt like she was betraying me. And like reading it now, I'm like, I mean, she seems pretty rational. It's pretty well written, and like I was totally just being a little bitch about it, you know.
Yeah.
And I was like, maybe I should text her about it. Like, why would I text her about it?
Yeah.
You know, like. So I don't know. I have it all. I don't know if I'll burn the box one day or not. But I was thinking about actually texting her and being like, "Did you get rid of it? You know, like,
Yeah.
should I?" Like, but then I'm like, "Why am I thinking that?" You know.
It's interesting to be able to go through those things and watch yourself as you go through it.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that people like you and I take for granted that a lot of people don't. I mean, maybe not take for granted, but like most people don't think about that shit. They're just like, feelings, sad. Oh, that's no good. Pour booze on it.
I mean, most people aren't self-aware. They don't like. I mean, if you can't think about how you used to think about something, it means you haven't really changed or learned or progressed, and that's kind of sad. But people are generally kind of stupid, and that sounds harsh.
Yeah, but it's true.
But to segue into the next section, the quote of the book I'm going to do, there's another section I saved from that book. It's basically about how normal people are pretty dumb.
Yeah.
And how, like, other intelligent people don't really conduct themselves in a manner where they understand that, or like maybe they just don't understand that the general public can't understand the complexities of a lot of like ideologies and like economies and all these things. And to like I was saying about like Sam Harris, like his anti-religious sentiment where he's like, oh, you know, rationality can manifest on its own. You don't need a framework. And it's like, yeah, if you're smart, like,
Yeah.
and you have the time to sit down and contemplate like life and decision making. But most people like have to fucking work. Most people have like lives and jobs and kids, and like, you know, anytime they have to spend to contemplate the fucking universe and the reality of truth is when they're a teenager, and they're not concerned about that then, you know. So maybe one day I'll talk about that. But so yeah, let's just segue right into the book section.
I have to go to a doctor appointment
What time?
at nooner.
Nooner?
So
Where is it?
15 minutes.
No, it's fine. I'll bang this out pretty quick.
Great.
So the book is called Liberalism by Ludwig von Mises. He's of the Austrian School of Economics.
Mr. Meeseeks
Yes.
of economics.
And a little bit of preface here. I need to note a couple of these things before we go into it. They're talking about liberalism in its true form, which would be a classical liberalism, not the modern United States distorted definition of liberal. And if you watch any political stuff, people that live in the UK are always saying like, oh, what's liberal in the UK is different than what's liberal in the United States. And this is different than that. This is traditional classical liberalism. What I wrote, it's also worth noting that we use a vague at best and historically ignorant at worst definition of socialism. We, for some reason, now think socialism is redistributionism. And lastly, the real political divide is not left to right. It's libertarian versus authoritarian. And then lastly, before the quote, no, two more things. Equality versus equity. Equity is equality is equal opportunity. Equity is equal outcome. That's the thing where things get kind of gray and where socialism starts to sound attractive, albeit that's mostly the younger and lower income bracket because, of course, like, obviously, if you're on the lower side, redistribution sounds great because you're getting stuff,
Yeah.
essentially. And
Or not your stuff.
Yes. And liberalism this is as defined by Wikipedia. Liberalism is the political and moral philosophy based on liberty, consent of the government, and equality before the eyes of the law. So by that definition, as soon as the state takes from you, it's anti-liberal. You know, and that reminds me of that one quote: "Any government that's big enough to give you everything is also big enough to take away everything you have." So
That's
the
a good
quote.
one.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of different iterations of that quote people have said, but it's absolutely true. So here's the quote. I'll do it right from the audiobook.
State is the apparatus of compulsion and coercion. This holds not only for the night watchman state, but just as much for every other, and most of all for the socialist state. Everything that the state is capable of doing, it does by compulsion and the application of force. To suppress conduct dangerous to the existence of the social order is the sum and substance of state activity. To this is added, in a socialist community, control over the means of production.
Okay. Let's kind of break that down. By state, they mean government, essentially. Compulsion is the action or state of force. Sorry. The action or state of forcing or being forced to do something. Coercion is the practice of persuading someone to do something by using force or threats. Okay? The reader mentions the night watchman state, which is also known as a minarchy, which is a model of state that is limited and minimal. The only function of a night watchman state would be it's quote the non-aggression principle, which would be providing military, police, and courts, basically protecting from aggression, theft, breach of contract, fraud, and just enforcing general laws. It would basically be like the ultimate libertarian government. Like, we give you the military, police, and courts. Mm-hmm. That's it. All right. So she's saying, the reader is saying, even the most libertarian force or form of government is still bad. And it's worth noting that a night watchman state, a minarchy, would be like libertarian. It'd be like libertarian anarchism, kind of, to where like libertarian right would be like the minarchy, and libertarian left would be like pure anarchism. Mm-hmm. With obviously everything is really, really, really gray there. All right, so we'll go down sentence by sentence. State is apparatus of compulsion and coercion, blah, 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 blah. So what Mises points out there is that this affects every single form of governance, period. From the socialist all the way to the most basic form, right? Everything the state is capable of doing, it does through compulsion and through the application of force. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, to suppress any dangerous conduct, I mean, you have to do, go to jail. It's a fine. There's a guy, I mean, you do something wrong, there's a guy with a gun standing there. That's essentially it. There's nothing the government doesn't do that isn't backed by force, really. Yeah,
because otherwise there's no reason to do it.
Yeah, and the libertarian argument is always like, the government can make all the suggestions they want. Just don't put a gun to my head and force me to do it. Obviously, that's a little bit polarizing, but to suppress conduct dangerous to the existence of the social order is the sum and substance of state activity. And then in the socialist one, that means control over the means of production. So the hammer there is that it's basically socialism is as anti-liberal, as you can get. It takes you right up to the edge of a totalitarian, authoritarian rule. It just kind of sounds nicer. Let's see, when I read exactly what I wrote here. So socialism is anti-liberalism taken as far as it can up to the edge of a totalitarian, authoritarian rule, where the lines get gray, and in fact, if not in all socialist states, they brazenly walk right past that line. It's a pretty simple quote. I just don't think people think about government in that sense. That the only way it controls. You got fucking cameras in the highways now. Yeah. Oh, you got to pay the toll. Yeah. It's like they're like, oh, we're gonna build the thruway. We'll be tolls for 10 years. After 10 years, we're gonna keep them up. Oh, we're gonna raise the prices. We'll enforce it by law. Yeah. It's like, what?
That's you're being fined to use the service you already paid for. Someone already paid for it at the very least.
Especially in the COVID world, where with all these crazy draconian, big government, big control, you get this, closing this. It's the only like I said, I'm not closing my business unless someone shows up with a gun. Yeah. That's the only way they could, not a gun, but if someone's going to show up and write me a fucking summons or something, I guess I could try to close, but it's not the government's job to decide that.
No, it's not.
What's in the best interest of the people is what the government is in their best interest, because that's what's best for the country, it's best for everyone. But to back that up with $10,000 fines and all this stuff with the COVID shit, it's a little bit over the line. I think in this, I mean, people really should read that book. They should really like. I don't know, man. Some of the kids at the skate park were talking about. The one kid was like, "I'm a communist. I'm a socialist." I'm like, "You're an idiot." It's like you're a child. It's like you've never even read a book, and like this. I don't know what school's teaching them, but it's not that great.
Great episode of King of the Hill where Hank tries to get Luann to vote, and they take her to like a voting fair or whatever, and she's like goes to the communist guy. She's like, well, he had the shortest line, and he had a red shirt on, and so I'm a communist.
Oh God,
it's sharing.
One of Joe Rogan's more controversial positions is that he thinks there should be like a test you need to pass to vote.
Yeah.
I think there should be some sort of baseline understanding. I mean, like, because people are dumb, and the politicians know that, like, all they gotta do is make you scared, and they get the vote, or they kind of rope you in like sheep. Not to be too, polarizing, but I mean, people don't know. People don't even vote on fucking policy. They vote on personality.
Yeah.
Like, you can't. No one can even tell all your anti-Trumpers. Why don't you like Trump? Like, oh, he's a jerk.
Yeah.
What about his policies? I don't know. He's bad on gay people.
Yeah.
He's bad on immigration. In what way?
The stuff the media says. It's
the cages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The cages. It's sad, mad, Trump bad.
Yeah. Whatever. You gotta get going. So
yeah,
we can wrap it up. I didn't do a good job breaking down that quote, but fuck it. Liberalism. Ludwig von Mises. I'll put it. It'll be right here in the video.
Nice.
Should read it. I'm Ludwig von Mises. Look at me.
It's a great thing to think about right now.
I mean, he said you give the government all this power, like they're not going to give it back.
No,
like I don't know.
The tolls are a perfect example of that.
Yeah.
It's like it'll pay for itself, and then more.
I just don't like. Whatever, they closed the skate park downtown. Okay, it's fine. It's a public park. They own it. They can do it. Tell businesses you can't operate. It's like, man,
But they're protecting us because we can't be trusted to protect ourselves.
It's ridiculous. Makes me want to pack my fist full of hate. Take a swing at the world.
Kids stick to themselves.
Well, it's French life, so.
Nothing's better than feeling good.
Something like that.
Something.
Godspeed.